Uh, Looking again at the seven judgments of God, the next judgment is the believer's self-judgment. The time is any place during our present life, and that's in Ephesians chapter 4, verses 22 through 32, and Colossians chapter 3, verses 5 through 17. And the place is anywhere during this present life. Romans chapter 8, verses 1 through 16, and Hebrews chapter 12, verses 5 through 11. And the subjects of this judgment are the individual believers that are walking in the light. We see that in 1 John chapter 1, verse 7. The results of this judgment is God's approval or his chastisement. Hebrews chapter 12, verses 5 through 11. The Apostle Paul told of excesses in the church at Corinth. In the Corinthian church, the Christians were drunken and desolate, according to 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 3 through 32. And this passage tells us that believers should judge themselves when they sin. Otherwise, God will judge, and they will be chastened of the Lord, so that they should not be condemned with the world. Christians need to examine their own lives for sin, and then judge sin and confess it to the Lord. If sin is confessed, it is forgiven, and the sinner is restored to fellowship with God and can walk again in the Spirit. 1 John chapter 1, verse 9. Having done this, the believer can now produce fruit, which will bring them rewards at the judgment seat of Christ. There is a judgment for the wicked and a judgment for the righteous, and that's in Acts chapter 24, verses 4 through 16. In this passage, it can be seen there is a judgment for the believer and non-believer. The believer will be judged at the judgment seat of Christ. The non-believer will be judged at the judgment of the wicked dead, or the great white throne judgment. Believers are saved and justified by faith in Christ, but they will battle with sin and many times fail. Therefore, it is necessary for believers to judge their own sins to avoid the chastisement of God and to receive rewards at the judgment seat of Christ. The believer must remember that chastisement from the Lord is not condemnation. That's in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 32. The Lord's chastening is always corrective and not vindictive, according to Hebrews chapter 12, verses 10 through 11. God does not chasten non-Christians. He chastens only his children in order to bring them back from sin and into fellowship with him, so that they would not be condemned with the world. And I thank you again for listening.